People say grief comes in waves. They're wrong. Grief is more like living underwater, everything muffled, movement slow, colors faded. You can function down there, but you're never quite sure if you're swimming or drowning. I stood at my kitchen sink, washing a single coffee mug under water that ran too hot. Outside the window, the magnolia tree James planted on our 10th anniversary was in full bloom. Creamy white petals the size of my hand, fragrant enough to smell through the glass. He'd be proud of that tree. He'd always been better with growing things than I was. The mug slipped from my fingers, clattering against the stainless steel but not breaking. My hands shook these days. Not from age. I was only 58, for God's sake, but from the simple fact that I'd forgotten how to do small things alone. How to make just one cup of coffee instead of two. How to set the table for one. How to exist in a 4,000-square-foot house without the one person who made it feel like home. 6 months. That's how long James had been gone. Some widows can tell you exactly how many days, hours, minutes. I stopped counting at 90 days because the numbers made it worse. Made it real in a way my heart wasn't ready to accept. A stroke, they said. Sudden. He was 58, same age I am now, and he'd been fine at breakfast. Complained about the Braves game. Kissed my forehead. Left for his office. By lunch, he was gone. Our house, my house now, though I still couldn't think of it that way, sat on 2 acres in Magnolia Grove, Georgia, just outside Savannah. James had designed it himself, back when he was still working as a structural engineer, before he started his own consulting firm. Every corner held a memory. The reading nook where he'd fall asleep with books on his chest. The porch where we'd drink sweet tea and argue about politics. The master bathroom where I'd found him that morning, slumped against the tile, already gone. I dried my hands and looked around the kitchen. Too big, too quiet, too full of ghosts. My phone buzzed on the counter. Tyler's name lit up the screen. My son, my only child. The one good thing James and I had created together, even if... I pushed that thought away. Some truths were better left buried with the dead. I answered. "Hey, sweetheart." "Mom." Tyler's voice sounded strained, tight. "Vanessa and I need to talk to you. Can we come this weekend?" "Of course, you don't have to ask. It's important." He cut me off, something he rarely did. "We'll be there Saturday morning, around 10? Tyler, is everything okay?" A pause. Too long. We need to discuss some things. About Dad. About the house. We'll talk when we get there." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, that underwater feeling pressing harder against my chest. Tyler lived an hour north in Atlanta with his wife. They visited once a month, usually. Dutiful visits that felt more obligatory than loving since James died. But something in Tyler's voice just now reminded me of the little boy he used to be. The one who'd hide behind my legs when strangers talked to him, who'd cry if he thought he'd disappointed his father. What did he need to talk about? And why did it sound like he was afraid to say it out loud? I walked to James's study. I couldn't bring myself to clean it out yet, and sank into his leather chair. It still smelled like him, aftershave and paper, and something indefinably James. On the desk sat a framed photo from our 25th anniversary. We looked happy. We were happy. Whatever our beginning had been, we'd built something real, hadn't we? A memory surfaced, sharp and unwelcome. 3 months before the stroke, James sitting me down in this very room. "Di, I need you to listen carefully," he'd said, his face serious in a way that scared me. "I've updated the will. Everything's in order." "James, don't talk like that." "I'm not being morbid. I'm being practical." He'd taken my hands. "I'm protecting you from the future you don't want to see, sweetheart, including the parts you don't want to think about." I hadn't understood then. Thought he was just being thorough the way engineers are. But now, sitting in his empty chair with Tyler's strange phone call echoing in my head, I wondered, what had James seen that I hadn't? What future had he been trying to protect me from? Saturday morning arrived with the kind of oppressive Georgia heat that made breathing feel like work. I'd been up since dawn, stress cleaning rooms that were already spotless, baking a coffee cake nobody would eat, doing anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. When Tyler's BMW pulled into the circular driveway at 10:15, I was waiting on the porch, wiping flour from my apron and trying to look like a normal mother instead of a woman drowning in uncertainty. Tyler stepped out first. My breath caught. He looked terrible. He'd lost weight, enough that his dress shirt hung loose around his shoulders. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his sandy hair, James's hair, needed a cut. When had my son started looking so haunted? Then Vanessa emerged from the passenger side, and the contrast was startling. She looked radiant. Hair professionally styled, makeup flawless, wearing a cream linen dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery bill. She smiled at me with those perfect white teeth, veneers I'd always suspected, and waved like we were old friends instead of family members circling each other with careful politeness. "Diane," she called out, her southern accent thick as honey. "Look at you. You've lost weight." I hadn't. That was just something she said, the kind of compliment that wasn't really a compliment. "Hello, Vanessa." I descended the porch steps and pulled Tyler into a hug. He felt stiff in my arms, resistant. When had that started? "It's good to see you both." Tyler's hug was brief, perfunctory. "Hey, Mom." Vanessa air-kissed both my cheeks, and I caught her perfume, expensive, cloying. "We brought wine," she announced, though it was barely past 10 in the morning. "For later, of course. I know you don't drink before noon." I didn't drink much at all anymore, but I didn't correct her. Inside, I served coffee and cake at the kitchen table. We made small talk. The weather, Atlanta traffic, Tyler's work in medical device sales. But underneath the pleasantries, I felt the current of something else. Something wrong. Tyler barely touched his cake. Vanessa ate with delicate precision, dabbing her mouth with a napkin between bites. And I watched them, really watched them, the way you do when you sense danger but can't identify its source. "So," I said finally, unable to bear the tension anymore, "what did you want to talk about?" Tyler and Vanessa exchanged a glance. She gave him a tiny nod. "It's about the estate," Tyler began, not meeting my eyes. "Dad's will. We've been worried," Vanessa interjected smoothly. "About you, Diane. This big house, all alone, the property taxes, the maintenance. It's a lot for one person." I set my coffee cup down carefully. "I'm managing fine. Are you, though?" Vanessa tilted her head, her expression practiced sympathy. "Because Tyler and I have been discussing it with my mother. She went through something similar when Daddy passed, and we think it might be wise to have someone help you. Legally, I mean." "Help me how?" Tyler finally looked up. "We think I should have power of attorney, just for financial stuff, to make things easier." The words hit me like cold water. Power of attorney. That meant Tyler could access my accounts, make decisions about my property, control everything James had left me. "Tyler, I have a financial advisor. I have James's lawyer. Everything's in order." "But what if something happens to you?" Vanessa leaned forward, eyes wide with concern that didn't quite reach her expression. "What if you get sick or confused? You're not getting any younger, Diane. And with your blood pressure—" "My blood pressure is fine." I kept my voice level, but my heart was hammering. "And I appreciate your concern, but I don't need—" "Mom, please." Tyler's voice cracked. "Dad would want you taken care of. He'd want family handling this, not strangers." That was a low blow, and he knew it. Using James against me. I studied my son's face, searching for the boy I'd raised, the sweet child who used to pick me dandelions and call them flowers. But all I saw was a stranger wearing his skin, speaking words that didn't sound like his own. My eyes shifted to Vanessa. She was watching me with the intensity of a cat watching a mouse hole. And suddenly, I understood. These weren't Tyler's words. They were hers. "I need to think about it," I said quietly. Vanessa's smile tightened. "Of course. Take your time. We just want what's best for you." We finished our coffee in strained silence. When they left an hour later, claiming traffic, errands, anything to escape the awkwardness, I stood at the window and watched their car disappear down the oak-lined drive. Then I went straight to James's study. His filing cabinets were meticulous, everything labeled in his neat engineer's handwriting. I found the will in the third drawer, exactly where he'd told me it would be. I sat at his desk and started reading, and that's when I saw it. The drawer had been opened recently. I could tell because the folder tabs weren't quite aligned the way James always kept them. One corner of the will was dog-eared, creased at an angle. Someone had been through these files. Someone had read this will before I had. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in months. It rang 4 times before he answered. Richard Morgan. Rick? My voice came out smaller than I intended. I need you to come home. Something's wrong. My brother was silent for a long moment. Then, I'll be on the next flight. Richard arrived 3 days later, pulling up in a rental car with 2 suitcases and the same worried expression he'd worn at James's funeral. My older brother, by 3 years, he'd built a successful career as a criminal defense attorney in Seattle, then retired early and disappeared into Pacific Northwest solitude. We hadn't been close since before Tyler was born. Die. He hugged me on the porch, and I let myself lean into him, just for a moment. He smelled like pine trees and rain, nothing like Georgia, nothing like home. Thank you for coming. You sounded scared on the phone. That's not like you. I led him inside, poured us both sweet tea out of habit, and told him everything. Tyler's strange visit, the questions about power of attorney, the disturbed files in James's study. Richard listened without interrupting, his lawyer face on, neutral, analytical. When I finished, he set his glass down with deliberate care. Show me the will. We went to the study together. I handed him the document, and he read it with the same methodical attention he'd probably given to 1,000 legal briefs. I watched his face for reactions, but he gave me nothing, until he reached page 7. His eyebrows lifted. Did you know about this? About what? He turned the will toward me and pointed to section 15, halfway down the page. The words swam before my eyes, legal jargon that I'd skimmed over before, thinking it was standard boilerplate. But it wasn't. All inheritance and property rights granted to Tyler James Robinson are conditional upon the following. 1. Demonstrable financial stability for minimum 2 consecutive years. 2. Absence of any documented domestic conflict or violence. 3. Respectful and supportive conduct toward Diane Robinson, as determined by 2 witnesses of her choosing. Failure to meet these conditions results in full forfeiture of inheritance rights. All assets revert to Diane Robinson with full autonomy. I read it twice, 3 times. The words didn't change. James never told me about this. He told me. Richard's voice was quiet. Called me 3 months before he died. Said he was worried about Tyler. That our boy was getting desperate, making bad decisions. He didn't specify what, but he wanted protection in place. For both of you. My throat tightened. James didn't trust his own son? James loved his son enough to protect him from himself. Richard tapped the document. And to protect you from what grief might make you do. Give everything away, just to keep the peace. I sank into James's chair, the leather creaking under my weight. Does Tyler know? I doubt it. If he did, he wouldn't be pushing for power of attorney. He'd know he has to earn it first. Richard paused. But someone's been through these files. You said the folder was disturbed? Yes, and I didn't touch it until after their visit. Then either Tyler or Vanessa found this. His jaw tightened. My money's on Vanessa. The pieces started falling into place, sharp and cutting. Vanessa offering to help organize James's office after the funeral. Diane too grief-stunned to refuse. Hours alone in this study, with all of James's files at her fingertips. She'd found the clause. She'd seen that everything was in my name, that Tyler had to earn his inheritance, that his mother held all the power. And instead of telling Tyler the truth, she'd weaponized it. She's been playing him, I whispered. Making him feel inadequate, pushing him to take control because she can't. Richard nodded grimly. Classic manipulation. And Tyler's vulnerable right now. Lost his father, probably struggling financially. How do you know he's struggling financially? My brother looked uncomfortable. Because I've been checking on him. Quietly. His sales numbers are down. He's got debt. And Vanessa? He hesitated. Her online boutique failed last year. They're underwater, Di, and they know you're sitting on over $2 million in assets. The room felt too small suddenly. Too hot. My son was drowning, and instead of asking his mother for help, he was trying to steal her life preserver. Because his wife had convinced him that was the only way. My phone buzzed. Text message. Tyler. Mom, we're coming back this weekend. Vanessa's mother wants to meet you. Can we come Saturday? It's important. I showed Richard. His expression darkened. They're escalating. What do I do? He thought for a moment, then stood. You let them come, but I'm going to be here. And Di? His eyes met mine, and I saw something in them I hadn't seen in years. Guilt, old and deep. Whatever happens, I'm not running this time. I'm staying until this is done. I nodded, not trusting my voice, because I knew what he meant, knew what he was apologizing for without saying it. Some secrets were too heavy to speak aloud, but they were coming. I could feel them rising like flood water, and when they broke the surface, everything was going to change. Saturday arrived with humidity so thick it felt like breathing through wet cotton. I'd spent the morning making myself presentable, a floral dress James always liked, pearl earrings, makeup to hide the sleepless nights, armor disguised as Southern hospitality. Richard stationed himself in the living room with a book he wasn't reading, waiting. When 3 cars pulled into the driveway instead of 1, my stomach dropped. Tyler's BMW, Vanessa's white SUV, and a sleek Mercedes sedan I didn't recognize. They came in a convoy, like an invasion. Vanessa's mother emerged from the Mercedes first. Eleanor Hayes was everything I'd expected, and worse. Expensive clothes, tasteful jewelry, and a smile that never touched her ice blue eyes. She'd been widowed 5 years ago, Vanessa told me once, left comfortable by her husband's import business in Charleston. But there was something else, something in the way she moved, calculated and purposeful, that reminded me of a chess player arranging pieces. Behind her came a man in his 60s wearing a suit too formal for a casual Saturday. He carried a leather briefcase. "Diane," Vanessa called out, waving as if this were a garden party. "This is my mother, Eleanor Hayes. And this is Stuart Hayes, my uncle. He's a family attorney." They brought a lawyer to my house without asking. Richard appeared in the doorway beside me, and I felt Eleanor's eyes sharpen as she assessed him. "And who might this be?" she asked, her Charleston accent dripping refinement. "Richard Morgan," my brother said evenly. "Diane's brother, and James Robinson's executor." The word executor landed like a stone in still water. Eleanor's smile never wavered, but something flickered behind her eyes. Surprise, recalculation. "How lovely," she said. "Family should be involved in these matters. Shall we go inside?" They filed into my dining room, and arranged themselves around the table like they owned it. Tyler sat next to Vanessa, silent and pale. Eleanor took the head of the table opposite me. Stuart positioned himself next to her, briefcase at the ready. Richard remained standing, arms crossed, watching everything. The table James built with his own hands suddenly felt like a battlefield. Eleanor Hayes settled into her chair with the confidence of a woman who'd done this before. She folded her manicured hands on the table and gave me a smile that was all sympathy and no warmth. "Diane, sweetheart," she began, and I bristled at the false intimacy. "I know how overwhelming this must be. Losing James, managing this enormous estate all by yourself. That's why we're here, to help lighten your burden." Stuart clicked open his briefcase with practiced efficiency. The sound echoed in the quiet room like a warning shot. "Mrs. Robinson," he said, his voice professionally smooth. "What we're proposing is a simple guardianship arrangement. Purely protective, you understand. Tyler would have legal authority to manage the estate, make financial decisions, handle any emergencies that might arise." He slid a document across the table toward me. The paper was thick, expensive, official-looking. I didn't touch it. "I'm 58 years old," I said quietly. "I don't need a guardian." "Of course not," Eleanor laughed, light and airy. "Guardian is such a harsh word. Think of it more as partnership. Tyler helping his mother navigate complicated waters. I have a financial advisor. I have James's lawyer. Who are strangers?" Vanessa interrupted, leaning forward with those wide, earnest eyes. "Mom, you need family right now. People who actually care about you, not just people collecting fees." The irony of her words, coming from a woman who'd brought her own paid lawyer to my table, would have been funny if it weren't so calculating. I looked at Tyler. He hadn't said a word since they arrived, just sat there staring at the table like a guilty child. "Tyler," I said, "look at me." He raised his eyes slowly. They were red-rimmed, exhausted. "Is this what you want? Really want? Or is this what they told you to want?" His mouth opened, closed. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Before he could answer, Eleanor's voice cut through the moment like a knife. "Diane, you're being emotional when this is purely practical. We're offering to help you transition into this new phase of life." "Transition into what, exactly?" Richard's voice came from behind me, calm and deadly quiet. Everyone turned. My brother moved from the doorway into the dining room with the slow deliberation of a man who knew he held the power in the room and was in no hurry to use it. Eleanor's smile flickered. "Mr. Morgan, this is a family discussion." "I'm family." Richard pulled out the chair next to mine and sat. "I'm also a lawyer, and I'm the executor of James Robinson's will, so anything involving this estate goes through me first." Stewart straightened in his chair. "Executor? I was under the impression—" "You were under the wrong impression." Richard produced a folder from seemingly nowhere and placed it on the table. "James appointed me 3 years ago. It's all documented, notarized, filed with the probate court." I watched the color drain from Vanessa's face. This was news to her. "Now," Richard continued, opening the folder with deliberate slowness, "let's talk about what you're really doing here. You've brought legal documents to pressure a grieving widow into signing over control of her assets. That alone is concerning. But what's more interesting is the assumption you've all made, that Tyler has any legal claim to this estate at all." Tyler's head snapped up. "What?" Richard slid the will across the table, not toward Eleanor or Stewart, but toward my son. "Read section 15, Tyler, page 7. My son's hands trembled as he picked up the document. I watched his eyes move across the page, once, twice. The confusion on his face shifted to hurt, then to something darker. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Dad put conditions on my inheritance?" "He put protections in place," Richard corrected. "For both of you. And the fact that you didn't know about them tells me everything I need to know about who's been driving this train." His eyes moved to Vanessa. She sat frozen, her perfect composure cracking at the edges. "You found this clause, didn't you?" Richard asked. "After the funeral, when you were helping organize James's office. You saw that everything was conditional, that Tyler couldn't touch a dime without meeting specific requirements. And instead of telling him the truth, you weaponized it. Made him feel like his mother was keeping him from what was rightfully his." "That's ridiculous," Vanessa started. "Is it?" Richard pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and turned it toward the table. "These are Tyler's phone records for the past 6 months. Notice anything interesting?" I couldn't see the screen from where I sat, but I saw Tyler lean forward, squinting. "Those are texts between you and your mother," Richard said to Vanessa. "Discussing the estate situation. Talking about convincing Tyler. About how the old lady won't last long anyway, she's already falling apart." "You went through my phone?" Tyler's voice was barely audible. "I subpoenaed your phone records," Richard corrected. "After Diane called me concerned. I've been building a case for the past 3 days. Want to know what else I found?" He pulled out another document. "This is a property appraisal for this house, commissioned 2 months ago, paid for by a company called Hayes Property Investments. Care to guess who owns Hayes Property Investments? Silence. That would be you, Mrs. Hayes, Richard said, looking at Eleanor. You had this house appraised without the owner's knowledge or consent. Want to explain why? Eleanor's mask slipped. Just for a second, I saw something cold and reptilian beneath the Southern Belle facade. We were simply exploring options, she said stiffly. In case Diane wanted to downsize. You were planning to flip it, Richard said flatly. Buy it from Tyler after he manipulated his mother into signing it over, then sell it for profit. This house is worth $1.2 million. You had it appraised at $950,000. You were planning to lowball your own son-in-law. Tyler stood up so fast his chair scraped against the hardwood floor. Is that true? He turned to Vanessa, his voice breaking. Were you planning to sell Mom's house? Vanessa's composure shattered completely. Tyler, you don't understand. We need the money. We're drowning in debt because of your failed sales quotas, your inability to provide. So you thought you'd steal from my mother to cover it? It's not stealing if it's family money, Vanessa shot back, her voice rising. Your father is dead, Tyler. He doesn't need this house anymore. And your mother is sitting on millions while we can barely make rent. The truth hung in the air, ugly and raw. Tyler looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. Then he looked at me. Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was like this. Before I could respond, Eleanor stood. We're leaving, she announced. Stuart, pack up. This has been a waste of time. Actually, Richard said mildly, you're not leaving just yet, because I have one more thing to share. He pulled out a final document, and I saw Stuart's face go pale. This is a complaint I've drafted for the State Bar of Georgia. Turns out, Mr. Hayes, you've been investigated twice before for elder financial abuse. Both cases were settled quietly, but the pattern is clear. You specialize in helping people coerce vulnerable widows into signing over their assets. Stuart's professional veneer cracked. Those allegations were never proven, but they're on record. And if I file this complaint along with today's attempted coercion, I suspect the bar will take a very close look at your practice. Richard's smile was razor sharp. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this house. You're going to have no further contact with Mrs. Robinson. And if I hear even a whisper of you trying this with another grieving widow, I will personally ensure you're disbarred. Are we clear? Stuart grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door without another word. Eleanor followed, but not before turning back to throw one last poison dart. Tyler, she said, her voice dripping disappointment. I thought you were man enough to take care of your family. I see now that Vanessa married a child. The words hit their target. Tyler flinched. Vanessa stood, tears, real or fake, I couldn't tell, streaming down her face. I was trying to help us, she said to Tyler. You're so weak, so passive. Someone had to take control. By betraying my mother? Your mother doesn't need this house. She's one person. We're a family. No, Tyler said quietly. We're not. The words hung in the air for a long moment. Then Vanessa grabbed her purse and ran after her mother. The front door slammed. Engines started. Gravel crunched. And then they were gone. Tyler stood in the middle of my dining room like a man who'd just survived a car crash, shaking, pale, unsure if he was injured or just in shock. I need air, he muttered, and stumbled toward the back porch. I started to follow, but Richard caught my arm. Give him a minute, he said gently. Let him process. So I sat at my dining room table, the same table where James and I had shared 30 years of meals, arguments, reconciliations, and tried to breathe through the tightness in my chest. How long have you known? I asked Richard. About Eleanor's scheme. 3 days. About Vanessa manipulating Tyler? I suspected from your first phone call. He sat across from me, suddenly looking older than his 61 years. People like Eleanor, they have a pattern. I've seen it in court 100 times. They find vulnerable targets, use family bonds as leverage, and strike when grief makes people weak. Tyler's not a bad person, I said, surprising myself with the need to defend him. No, he's a hurt person. There's a difference. Richard paused. But Di? He was willing to betray you. Whether he knew the full plan or not, he was ready to take control of your assets. You need to face that. I knew he was right, but knowing and accepting are different things. Through the window, I could see Tyler on the back porch, head in his hands. What happens now? I asked. Now? Tyler makes a choice. Get help and rebuild, or stay in denial and lose everything. A knock at the front door interrupted us. Richard tensed. Stay here. He went to answer it while I waited, heart pounding. Had Eleanor come back? Vanessa? But the voice I heard was unfamiliar. Female, professional. Richard returned with a woman in her mid-40s, dressed in a simple blouse and slacks, carrying a leather portfolio. Diane, this is Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She's a family therapist I contacted yesterday. Dr. Mitchell extended her hand. Her grip was warm, firm. Mrs. Robinson, I'm sorry to arrive unannounced, but Richard thought timing might be important. Timing for what? For Tyler. She glanced toward the back porch. I understand he's just had a significant revelation about his marriage. These moments, when someone's illusions shatter, they're windows, opportunities for real change, but they close quickly. If Tyler's willing, I'd like to offer him a session. Today. Now. I looked at Richard. You planned this? I hoped for it, he admitted. Mitchell is one of the best therapists in Atlanta. She specializes in family manipulation, financial abuse, toxic relationships. If anyone can help Tyler see clearly, it's her. Dr. Mitchell smiled gently. I won't push, but if he's willing to talk, I'm willing to listen. Sometimes an objective voice makes all the difference. I nodded slowly and walked to the back porch. Tyler looked up when the door opened. His eyes were red. There's someone here who wants to help, I said. A therapist. You don't have to talk to her, but I think maybe you should. For a long moment, Tyler said nothing. Then, okay. Dr. Mitchell set up in James's study. Neutral territory, she said. Tyler sat on the leather couch while she took the chair opposite. Richard and I waited in the kitchen, pretending to drink coffee neither of us wanted. How long will this take? I asked. As long as it needs to. An hour passed, then another. Finally, the study door opened. Tyler emerged looking exhausted but somehow lighter, like he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying too long. Dr. Mitchell followed, her expression professionally neutral. Tyler's agreed to continue sessions, she said. Twice a week, initially. We have a lot to unpack. Did he tell you everything? I asked. She glanced at Tyler, who nodded. The manipulation started before his father died, Dr. Mitchell said carefully. Vanessa's been slowly isolating him, making him doubt himself, tying his worth as a man to financial success and control. Classic patterns. But there's something else. She paused, choosing her words carefully. Tyler received a call this morning from someone claiming to be from his bank, warning him about suspicious activity on his accounts. The caller suggested his mother might be moving assets without his knowledge. My blood ran cold. What? It was fake, Tyler said quickly. I checked. No one from the bank called, but it felt real. So real that I almost believed it. He looked at me with haunted eyes. They're not done, Mom. Eleanor and Vanessa, they're escalating. Richard stood. What kind of call, specifically? Tyler pulled out his phone and played a voicemail. A professional-sounding woman's voice. Mr. Robinson, this is Jennifer from First National Bank. We've detected unusual activity on the joint accounts associated with your late father's estate. We need you to verify some transfers made by Diane Robinson. Please call back at your earliest convenience. That's not your bank, Richard said flatly. I know. I called the real bank. They never contacted me. Tyler's hands shook. But whoever made that call knew about Dad's accounts. Knew enough details to sound legitimate. How? Dr. Mitchell and Richard exchanged a look I couldn't read. Tyler, the therapist said gently, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully before answering. In the past month, has anyone new entered your life? Someone helpful, friendly, who seemed to appear at just the right time? Tyler frowned. I don't think so. Why? Because sophisticated scams often involve plants. People inserted into the target's life to gather information and build trust. Like who? Like a concerned neighbor, a helpful coworker, a therapist, Richard finished quietly. Dr. Mitchell's face went still. What? I asked. Richard was already pulling out his phone, typing rapidly. Mitchell, where did you say your practice was located? Buckhead. Why? And your license number? She rattled it off without hesitation. Richard checked something on his phone, and his shoulders relaxed slightly. You're legitimate, he said. Sorry, had to check. I understand. But Dr. Mitchell looked troubled. Though your instinct is right. If someone wanted to get close to Tyler, to monitor the family situation, a fake therapist would be the perfect cover. She turned to Tyler. Have you or Vanessa seen any counselors recently, together or separately? Tyler thought for a moment, then his face changed. 3 weeks ago, he said slowly. Vanessa said we should see a marriage counselor, someone her mother recommended. Dr. something. Helen? No, that was her first name. Dr. Helen Morrison. Richard was already typing. His face went pale. There is no Dr. Helen Morrison, licensed in Georgia. The room went silent. But I met her, Tyler insisted. Twice. In her office in Midtown Atlanta. She seemed real, professional. She had certificates on the wall, business cards. What did you tell her? Dr. Mitchell asked urgently. Everything. About Mom, the house, our money problems, Vanessa's frustration. Tyler's voice trailed off as realization hit. Oh my God. She wasn't a therapist. She was gathering information. For Eleanor, I whispered. Richard was still on his phone, scrolling through something. Then he stopped. Tyler, this Dr. Helen Morrison, what did she look like? 50s, blonde, expensive clothes, had this really calming voice. Richard turned his phone toward us. It was a photo from a society page. A charity gala in Charleston. Eleanor Hayes stood next to an elegant blonde woman. The caption read, Eleanor Hayes and Sister Helen Morrison celebrate the annual Eleanor's sister, Richard said. Not a doctor, an actress. Literally. She did community theater in Charleston before she moved to Atlanta 5 years ago. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't just manipulation. This was a coordinated con. And we'd been the targets. Tyler sank onto the couch, head in his hands. How did I not see it? Because you were grieving. Dr. Mitchell, the real Dr. Mitchell, said gently. Because you were vulnerable. Because they're professionals. We need to go to the police, I said. With what evidence? Richard countered. Tyler voluntarily saw a woman claiming to be a therapist. She didn't steal anything, didn't forge anything. It's sleazy, but it's not technically illegal. So they just get away with it? I didn't say that. Richard's expression was grim. I said we can't go to the police yet, but I have another idea. Night fell over Magnolia Grove like a curtain dropping. Dr. Mitchell left with promises to follow up with Tyler. My son stayed for dinner, a quiet, strained meal where none of us had much appetite. I should go, Tyler said finally, pushing back from the table. Vanessa's probably wondering. Vanessa knows exactly where you are, Richard interrupted. And I strongly suggest you don't go home tonight. Stay here, or get a hotel, but don't go back to that apartment until we figure out what we're dealing with. You think I'm in danger? I think you're a liability now. You know too much. You've chosen sides. Richard's voice was deadly serious. People who run cons don't like loose ends. Tyler looked at me, fear naked on his face. Mom? Stay, I said, please. Your old room is exactly how you left it. He nodded, relieved. Richard excused himself to make some calls. Lawyer stuff, he said cryptically. I started clearing dishes, grateful for something to do with my hands. Tyler helped, and we worked in silence for a few minutes. Mom, he said finally, I need to tell you something. About Vanessa. About us. I waited. It's not just the money. There's someone else. A guy named Andrew. He's a real estate developer. Her ex-boyfriend from college. Tyler's voice was hollow. I found texts. They've been talking for months about properties, opportunities, about how this house would be perfect for a flip. My hands stilled in the soapy water. She wasn't planning to live here, Tyler continued. She was planning to sell it, with him. They had it all worked out. He laughed bitterly. And I was so stupid, so desperate to be the man she wanted me to be, that I almost helped her do it. I dried my hands and turned to face my son. Tyler, you need to leave her. File for divorce. Get out before this gets worse. I know. His voice broke. I keep thinking about who I was before her. I wasn't this person, Mom. I wasn't someone who'd betray his own mother. When did I become this? I pulled him into a hug, and he collapsed against me the way he used to when he was small, when the world seemed too big and scary. You lost your way, I said into his hair, but you can find it again. We'll help you. We stood there for a long moment, mother and son, trying to piece together something that had been broken for longer than either of us wanted to admit. Then Tyler's phone rang. He pulled back, checked the screen. It's Vanessa. Don't answer, I said, but he already had. Hello? I couldn't hear her words, but I could hear her tone, high, frantic. Tyler's face went white. What? When? Are you sure? He hung up. What is it? I asked. Someone broke into our apartment. Vanessa came home and the door was open. Place is trashed. Richard appeared in the doorway. That was fast. You think Eleanor did this? Tyler asked. I think someone's sending a message. The question is whether it's a threat or a frame. Tyler's phone rang again. Different number. He answered. Hello? This time I heard the voice on the other end. Male. Official. Mr. Robinson, this is Detective Ray Cooper with Atlanta PD. We need you to come down to the station. Your wife has filed a report. Says you threatened her this morning before leaving. Says she's afraid you might have been the one who broke into your apartment. Tyler's eyes went wide. What? That's not... I've been here all day. My mother and uncle can verify... I'm sure they can, sir. But we still need you to come in. It's procedure. The call ended. Tyler looked at me, then at Richard, panic rising in his eyes. They're framing me, he whispered. Vanessa's framing me. Richard was already grabbing his keys. Come on, we're going to that station together. Di, lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone. I'll call you when we're done. They left in a rush of activity, leaving me alone in the too-quiet house. I locked the doors as instructed, checked the windows, set the alarm. Then I stood in the middle of my empty living room, surrounded by 30 years of memories, and felt the fear finally catch up with me. Because Richard was right. Eleanor and Vanessa weren't done. This was just the beginning, and I had no idea how much worse it was going to get. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and recycled air. Detective Ray Cooper led us to a conference room with fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead. Mrs. Robinson, you didn't need to come down, he said. My son was accused of something he didn't do. Yes, I did. Cooper pulled out a notepad. Mrs. Vanessa Robinson claims her husband became verbally aggressive this morning, made threats, then left. She returned home to find their apartment broken into. She believes her husband did this to intimidate her. I was at my mother's house all day, Tyler said hoarsely. There are witnesses. Richard leaned forward, sliding a folder across the table. The therapist, Dr. Sarah Mitchell, will verify Tyler was in session from 1 to 3 p.m. I also have time-stamped photos proving he never left the property. He showed his phone. Tyler on the porch. Tyler in the kitchen. Each with clear metadata. Why were you taking these? Cooper asked. Because this family is being targeted by a fraud scheme, and I suspected Tyler might need an alibi. Richard tapped the folder. Eleanor Hayes. Investigated twice for elder financial abuse. Her brother-in-law Stuart Hayes. Same pattern. Her sister Helen Morrison impersonated a therapist to extract information from Tyler. This morning, Tyler received a fraudulent call claiming to be from his bank. I traced it to a burner phone purchased in Charleston, where Eleanor was 3 weeks ago. Cooper flipped through the documents, his expression shifting from skepticism to interest. "These people are professionals," Richard continued. "A fake break-in with convenient timing? They're trying to discredit Tyler before he can testify against them." Cooper stood. "Want to see what your wife is saying?" He led us to an observation room. Through one-way glass, Vanessa sat dabbing her eyes with a tissue, looking small and vulnerable. "He's been angry since his father died," she was telling an officer. "He blames me for our money problems. This morning he grabbed my arm, said horrible things. I was scared." Tyler flinched beside me. "She's lying," he whispered. "I know," I said, taking his hand. Cooper muted the audio and turned to Richard. "She's good. She's had practice. Check her medical records. You'll find a pattern of domestic violence reports. All against Andrew Morrison, her real estate developer boyfriend." Another detective entered. Detective Linda Park, 50s, weathered face. "I pulled Vanessa's history," Park said. 3 DV reports in 5 years, all against Andrew Morrison, all dropped. Each one coincided with a property transaction involving elderly owners who sold below market value. "She was creating alibis," Richard said. Cooper and Park exchanged looks. "We need to bring in Eleanor Hayes and Andrew Morrison," Park said. Movement on the monitor caught my eye. Andrew Morrison had just entered Vanessa's interview room, not in handcuffs, but carrying coffees. He sat next to her and leaned close, whispering, not like a concerned friend, like a co-conspirator. "Good Lord," Cooper muttered. "He's coordinating stories with her." He was already moving, speaking into his radio. "Detain Andrew Morrison, now." We left the station near midnight. Tyler stared out the car window at nothing. "They're going to arrest her," he said quietly. "Vanessa?" "Yes," Richard replied. "Good." Tyler's voice was hollow. "Is that wrong?" "She was never really your wife," I said gently. "Maybe she never was. Inside my house, I made tea nobody wanted." Tyler collapsed on the sofa. Richard paced. "I don't want to talk about logistics," Tyler interrupted Richard's legal analysis. "I want to understand how I became someone who'd betray his own mother." He looked at me with desperate eyes. What was broken in me that made me so easy to manipulate? And there it was, the question I'd been dreading for 32 years. I sat down slowly, cup trembling. "Tyler, there's something you need to know. Something we should have told you long ago." Richard stopped pacing. Don't. He deserves the truth." I took a breath. "James Robinson was the best man I ever knew. He was a wonderful husband, an incredible father. He loved you more than life itself." Tyler's confusion was palpable. "Okay, but he wasn't your biological father." Silence. Tyler's face cycled through confusion, denial, shock. "What?" "When I met James, I was 26, pregnant, alone. James offered to marry me, to raise you as his own. He chose you, Tyler, every single day for 32 years. Tyler's eyes found Richard frozen by the window. "Uncle Richard," Tyler whispered. "You're my father." Richard's face crumpled. "Yes, I was 29, scared. When your mother told me she was pregnant, I ran. And you've known this my whole life." Tyler stood, backing away. "So when you came back now, was that guilt? Or did you actually give a damn?" "Both," Richard said quietly. "I was a coward. I let James be the man I should have been. But everything I've done this week, that wasn't guilt. That was love. 30 years too late love." Tyler laughed bitterly. "You don't even know me. I know you bite your thumbnail when you're nervous. Did that during your valedictorian speech. I was there, in the back, watching my son accomplish something I was too afraid to claim." Tears streamed down Tyler's face. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because Dad was your father," I said firmly. "DNA doesn't make a father. James changed your diapers, taught you to be a good man. He was your father in every way that mattered." Tyler sank onto the couch, head in hands. Finally, he looked at Richard. I need time to process this. Take all the time you need. But I want... Tyler's voice cracked. I want to know you, eventually. Richard's eyes filled with tears. I'd like that. Tyler turned to me. I'm angry right now, at all of you. But underneath that, I'm grateful. Because he chose me. And maybe that means more than biology ever could. I pulled my son into my arms. We held each other and cried. For James, for lost time, for truths that came too late. Outside, the magnolia tree stood silent witness. Some roots run deeper than blood. 1 year later, spring came to Georgia with azaleas and dogwoods, and the magnolia tree in my new front yard opening its creamy petals. My new front yard. I'd sold the big house 6 months ago. Too many ghosts. The cottage I bought had 2 bedrooms, a sunny kitchen, and a porch with 2 rocking chairs. Smaller was better. Vanessa took a plea deal, 18 months. Andrew got 3 years. Eleanor was fighting extradition from France. Stuart was disbarred. Justice was messier than movies made it look. But it was something. Tyler's divorce finalized 3 months ago. He'd started a construction job, saying he liked building things with his hands like James used to. Therapy twice a week with Dr. Mitchell. And once a month, coffee with Richard. I watched them now from my kitchen window, sitting on the porch. Tyler talking animatedly, Richard listening with the intensity of a man memorizing every word. They weren't father and son in the traditional sense. But they were building something. The doorbell rang. William stood there with a grocery bag and a gentle smile. You needed lemons, he said. William Chen, widower, retired teacher, volunteer coordinator at the shelter where I now worked twice a week. We'd been seeing each other for 3 months. Casual, careful. He wasn't James, but he was kind, patient, present. Come in, I said. Family dinner. We assembled around my small table. Tyler, Richard, William, Dr. Mitchell, and her wife. 7 people in a space meant for 4, passing dishes and laughing. This wasn't the family I'd imagined. But this smaller, messier, harder-won version? This was real. After dinner, Tyler helped with dishes. Mom, I got something yesterday. A letter from Dad's lawyer. Instructions to deliver it 1 year after his death. He pulled out worn paper. Want to hear it? I nodded. Tyler read, Son, if you're reading this, you know the truth. I'm sorry I never told you. I was selfish enough to want you to love me without biology complicating it. But I need you to understand. I raised you because the moment I saw you, I knew you were mine. By choice. Richard gave you life, but I got the privilege of watching you live it. Be kind to him. He's carried guilt long enough. Love always, Dad. We were both crying. He knew I'd need permission, Tyler whispered. To be okay with loving both of them. That's what he was giving you. Through the window, Richard laughed at something William said, the weight of old guilt finally lifting. I think I'm ready to stop being angry, Tyler said. To build something real with Richard. And with you. No more secrets. No more secrets. We joined the others as the sun set, painting the sky amber and rose. The magnolia tree stood in full bloom, luminous in fading light. I thought about James, about seeds he'd planted that grew beyond him. This family wasn't built on blood or tradition. It was built on choice, on showing up, on courage to start again. Surrounded by people who'd chosen to stay, I realized. I was happy, not uncomplicated happiness, but the deeper, harder-won happiness of a woman who'd lost everything and discovered she was strong enough to build something new. The magnolia petals drifted down like snow. Some roots run deeper than blood. Some families are chosen, not born. This was mine, and it was enough. At the end.